Hello and welcome back to the Holistically Awakened podcast. Today I have Dalia with us, a mindset coach, and we're going to be getting into some great rabbit holes together today. I'm super excited for this conversation. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
So, I know we had many different topics that we were planning on talking on. And the first thing, let's just dive right in. I want to touch on gaining clarity on what we want, especially like this is an adult conversation, but interestingly enough, this isn't something I thought about before, Dahlia, you brought it up, but there's a lot of emphasis on like, what do you want? Who do you want to be? What do you want to do when you're like growing up? And then you're an adult, and all of a sudden it's like, doesn't matter anymore. Nobody asks us this, and we're just sort of like thrown into the world, and then we just, end up doing certain things for a living, or, this is just who I am now. And we will talk about what is dangerous about this, but I'd love for you, Dahlia, to yeah, continue this conversation around this topic about, having the clarity about what we want and actually like having conversations about it.
Yeah, oh my God. I think it's such an important conversation because, I'll just start with when was like, if you're listening to this, when was the last time that you actually just asked yourself, what do I want? Like, what do you really want from your life? And I do think that when we're younger, like when you're in school, when you're a little kid, it's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be when you get older? And we dream big and we have all of these things that we want. And then when you get older, quote unquote, or you get to a certain age, it's like, when do you actually then start to like go back to that and evaluate that and really ask yourself what you want? And I think oftentimes because we stop dreaming big and we don't actually get clear on what we want, we end up following someone else's path in life or what we think we should be doing. And then obviously it kind of goes downhill from there. And I think it's really important to ask yourself what you do want, because I think we all have that little voice inside us. I know we spoke about this. And I think sometimes we're just programmed to go after a certain path, or like I said, to follow someone else's path. And that's never gonna really make you happy or get you what you actually want in life. And I think that when we do live what lights us up and we all live our best life, like the world just gets to be a better place because you're radiating and you're shining that energy from that place. So yeah, that's in a little nutshell.
Yeah, and what I found is suppressing this because I've worked mainly with women, and a lot of the time the work that we do is actually looking at like what do you actually want for your life, because oftentimes we reach out for coaching because something is just not feeling right anymore, or we really want to change certain things. Like that's obviously when you usually reach out for a coach. And oftentimes it's almost like, and this is what I also experienced many times, where it's just like sometimes it's even hard to answer that question because we haven't been accustomed to it. So it's almost like you just come up blank, like, I don't even know. And this is something that I've given to my clients too, which is like a joy menu of like, I'd like you to create a joy menu with all the things that bring you joy, like refer to that and do it daily. And sometimes this is so uncomfortable because we haven't been prioritizing this and we can get so out of touch. And I've seen this when we suppress our desires, we don't talk about this, we don't actually acknowledge the parts of us that, have desires and, wants. And oftentimes it's just sort of like shit on with for lack of a better word, in terms of just like, yeah, that's not possible, you're too old, you're too this. There's a lot of limiting beliefs, but specifically because I've been working with women's health for a long time, I see it coming up even in physical symptoms where, they have been suppressing their truth. We've not been really looking at like, what do you want, and actually not just getting clear on it, but also allowing it. Because there are two different things as well, right? Like getting clear on what you want and actually allowing yourself to have what you want is just like whole other level. And I've seen this come up in, women's health, and it makes sense because, this is also pertaining to energy, like the chakra systems I really like to look at in terms of like creativity and sensuality and desires and all of these sorts of things. And those can be related to, different parts of the body, digestive system, even reproductive system. All of these health issues can come up when we just keep suppressing and suppressing and suppressing. So I'd love to know, like, if you've seen that come up with your clients too, like, if you've seen suppression of desire show up in different ways in people's lives, because I've definitely experienced that. And oftentimes we sort of just get roadblocks or boulders, you know, on our path until we actually start to acknowledge like this is not the right path. I keep saying yes to things that I don't want. I can't say no to things and all of that kind of thing. So this is often coming to that journey of like the awakening of like, oh, I'm actually not honoring my desires. So I'd love to hear if you have any like thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, 100%. So, first of all, I definitely relate to everything you said there. And I'm a big believer that a lot of the time, if you there's that little voice and there's like you said, like not saying yes to your life. And I think when you do suppress those desires, it often manifests into the physical as well. And I often think that if it like oftentimes when we get sick and when we get things like that, it's literally our body signaling to us that we need to change or we need to listen and we need to do something about it as well. And I had this in my own life. Like I used to get constant throat infections all the time. I literally forgot about this until you brought this up. But all the time, and I was always taking antibiotics, and I realized like it's very much connected to the chakras and then and the throat and like not expressing and not sharing my voice. And when I did start sharing, guess what? Like the throat infections stopped like coming so often as well, which is crazy to connect that and to think about that. Um, I think two things that are coming up because I always want to get practical and like if people are listening, like what if I don't know what I want, like what am I like, how do I even start? And I think one of the first places that I often start with clients when they're kind of not clear and they haven't had that space to even contemplate and think like, what do I want? Get clear on what you don't want, because when you're clear on what you don't want, and oftentimes this is literally the first thing I hear when I work with clients and I'm helping them to gain clarity on what they want. I'll ask them a question like what's their vision, what do they desire, and straight away they'll flip off all the things they don't want. I don't want this, I don't want to feel this way, I don't want to feel lack of energy, I don't want to feel burnout, I don't want to feel X, Y, and Z. And they're very clear on what they don't want. And I think that when you're clear on what you don't want, when you're clear on what you don't want, you can literally flip that around and get very clear on what you do want from that place. And then it's about going after that one step at a time. And just building on from that, I think one of the things that's so powerful when you are going after big things and that little voice inside, like I had a client and one of her secret things that she wanted was literally to be a skydiving instructor. And it's like not a conventional thing. It's not a thing that a lot of people are doing. And I think one of the things that's so important when you are going after big things, and I guess especially unconventional things, is to surround yourself with people who are normalizing that and doing the same thing, because who you are surrounding yourself with makes a big difference. And when that is normalized, it's so much easier to go after that and to stop those limiting beliefs from getting in the way of going after the things that you actually really want from life.
Yeah, and talking about that, like we talked about, I love the recommendation around, what do you not want then? Because that can definitely be helpful to get clear on what we want. Because it's very interesting how oftentimes we're much more clear on the negative than the positive, but that's also how we've been, conditioned. But that can definitely bring clarity for sure. And then it's almost like we're starting, and this is something that I've also noticed, like even if you start asking yourself the question like on a daily basis, like what do I want, you're going to get some answers. It's just if you don't ask yourself any questions, then you won't get any answers, right? So the question part I think is really important. And I love that you mentioned, so we might as well dive into that. So obviously getting clear on what you want, but then there's the whole piece about like, am I allowed to have what I want? Am I good enough? Like, can I do this? Blah, blah, blah. Right. Like you mentioned. So I know that there can be lots of beliefs that can get in the way. And I think that's the main thing because, and this is something that hurt when this realization hurt when I really like, understood it, that anything that we really have in our life is what we do desire on some kind of level. Usually it's an unconscious level, or that we allow ourselves to have. Like that's sort of like our capacity. And so, especially if it's like repeating circumstances. And this is where, my healing got into like the inner work around, oh, why do I keep attracting this kind of thing? Why aren't I able to sort of break through this barrier or whatever? And that's where the beliefs really come in around. And I think a lot of it comes down to really what was modeled to you. Like you mentioned, the environment, like this is normal because everyone in my family, has been doing life this way or whatever, living this way. And so that's where it can get difficult at first. Oftentimes we don't have that environment that is sort of like helping us move towards the reality that we want because it's just sort of the sort of normalizing what we've always had. And so that's where we have to start to look at not only our inner world, but also our environment, which we will talk about. But I'd love for you to touch on the aspect of like the beliefs. So, what was modeled to you? And then this is where self-sabotage can happen. And I think self-sabotage is really negative because oftentimes it's just like, I don't know why I keep sabotaging. It's just like this shaming, but it's really just protection because anything beyond the comfort zone, even if the comfort zone sucks, is dangerous because we don't know what it is, right?
100%, 100%. Well, I think the first thing that I'm just feeling called to share is that I think when you start to really understand that what you desire is meant for you, and you accept that, I think a lot can really shift because I think oftentimes going back to the conversation of how we suppress our desires, I think sometimes there's that, like, there's something inside of us of like, this is what we want and this is what we desire. And sometimes it's like we're taught that we have to have a reason behind wanting something. And the truth is, like, now, at this point, I don't think that you need a reason for the things that you want. Like, it's okay to desire something and to have it because you want it and no other reason. And the truth is, a lot of what we want anyway, it's not things that we need, it's things that we just want to add into our life as well. Like, at the end of the day, you need food, water, a roof over your head. Like, beyond that, we don't need the things that we actually want. And it's okay to just desire it because you freaking want to go after it. And that's a good enough reason. And I think that if you do desire something, you are meant, like, it's yours to have and it's yours to go after. Like, I think one of the examples I give is like, for me, for example, like there's people in the world who want to sail around the world and go on boat trips and do stuff like that. Would never be in my desires because I get seasick. That's meant for them. It's not meant for me. Just like for me, traveling and doing other things, that would be someone else's worst nightmare. So the point is, if you have that little, like I call it, that little voice inside you, that little whisper of your soul, whatever you want to call it, that is calling you to do something, it is yours to own and to go after. And going back to the question, I forgot what the original question was now. I was kind of going into a tangent there.
Yeah, around like
Beliefs.
self-sabotage, the beliefs that we, take on from usually family, society.
Yeah. So again, I think there's a big importance to, like I said, who we're surrounding ourselves with and what we're consuming as well. And when I say what we're consuming, I'm not even just talking about social media. Like, again, like there's the negative side of what you're consuming and who you're following and everything around that. But there's also intentionally being positive around what you're consuming and actually following people who are going after the things that you want, listening to podcasts like this, working on your mindset. Like there's so much work. There's the inner work, I think, is the biggest thing. Like it's a daily thing and it's about continuously asking yourself and questioning like, what are the things that are holding you back? And that's oftentimes where the coaching comes in, because I think we all have our blind spots. Like I have my own coach as well, because there's things that I can't see. But the point is, it's about like all the time asking yourself, like, what are the things that are holding me back? And what would the version of me who has the things I desire, how would she be thinking? What would she need to believe to make this possible? And I think a lot can really shift from that place, like who we're surrounding ourselves with, what we're consuming. And also, I think just one last thing I would say on that is that it's also okay to be in the right questions without having the answers, because I think the question is like a big part and you don't always need to have the answers right now. Like even when you're asking yourself, what do I want? If you're not clear on that, it's okay, but be in the questions and give yourself that space to ask that. And I think something for me personally, I'll just end on that, that's like been really, really helpful and I often work with clients is to flip the thought around, because like you said before, I think it's really easy for us to go to the negative of all the negative and focus on that. And sometimes the biggest thing that I love to do, even in my own life, is to flip it around. Like if your mindset is going, what if it doesn't work? And what if all of these bad things are going to happen? What if it does? What if it does work? Like allow yourself to go to that space for a second and see what's coming up. And I oftentimes really see that something that isn't spoken about enough in society is the fear of success. And I think a lot of us don't fear failure as much as we fear success. And success comes with so much uncertainty and so much unfamiliarity and things that we haven't done before and that we're not used to. And there's so many beliefs around like, well, when we have a certain amount of things or when we tap into this, like what's that going to mean? And are we going to turn into a different person? Like you're not going to turn into a different person by having more or by having more abundance. It's you're going to be the same person as you are. You're just going to amplify what you already have. Like, so there's like a lot of beliefs around that as well. I'm sure you have what to add there.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking we could definitely dive into the fear of success because there's like so many different things I want to touch on, but I think this is a good segue. Um, Specifically around, I can totally resonate more with the fear of success than the fear of failure. And I've definitely sabotaged in the name of, the fear of success. And a lot of the time we're not aware of this. We usually think like, oh, I really don't want to fail. But I also want to touch on is it's very much normalized to have like normal health, money, jobs that are usually like, okay, it's like meh, it's like could be better, like struggling. And it's almost like, I don't know if you've noticed, but like when you ask someone like, how's it going? Like oftentimes like, good, you are like could be better, or just it's kind of just like not that good. But then if you hear someone who was like, my day is fantastic, I'm having the best day, it's almost like, what is wrong with you? Like that would be weird almost, right? Like it's almost like we normalize like just the struggle, and that is actually true. And it's a societal thing, and we are becoming aware of it. But well, not everyone. But anyways, there's definitely a weird vibe collectively from conditioning about thriving. And this is where the fear of success comes in. And there's so many, specific different fears that can fall under this. But ultimately, it really comes down to like being abandoned or not part of the tribe, quote unquote, like the group, because we can be like rejected. And we definitely see this online now where it's like more obvious when there are trolls online or, haters, like oftentimes will be more obvious than when we didn't have the internet. So, and this is something that Shoshana Raven, a coach, talks about a lot, which is the war on happy people, where it's like, we wish you the best, but not too good, where it's like you celebrate people and it's like there's a lot of celebrating like the underdog and, people who are struggling and everything. But then it's like if it gets too good, life gets too good, then a lot of the time, and that's like the tall poppy syndrome, I think they call it in Australia, where it's like we just got to like cut you down a little bit. Like you can't just get too happy, too successful, too wealthy, whatever. So it makes a lot of sense as to why, like, if you're starting to like, get happier, healthier, fitter, whatever it is, more money, wealthier, then we can sort of feel like, okay, I need to sort of like get back down again because I don't want to be too big. I don't want to trigger people. I don't want to be hated on, etc. So yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that whole concept.
Well, I have so much to say. I think honestly, the first thing is I think we need to normalize that you having something that you want or you having all of the things doesn't take away from anyone else having it. I think that's also a big belief that stops us and gets in the way as well. Um, the second thing is that I think that if you are going after big things that most people don't have, and you are in that, like literally why I do what I do is to ensure that people are thriving and not surviving. And I think when you are in the smaller percentage of people who are going after that, you've also got to work on yourself that you've also got to, I guess, come to some acceptance that you got to like be willing to be different if you want to be different things that most people don't have. I think that's the point. Like you are going to stand out. You are not going to fit in maybe with a lot of people, and you've got to be okay with that. And that's like work in itself. I think the last piece I would say, just building on from that if someone is kind of just starting to get into that space, like someone who has that knowing that, that knowing that you're meant for more and you're like just getting started in this space, I think the biggest thing that personally shifted for me in my life to get to that place is to shift any feelings of jealousy to inspiration. I think a lot really shifted from that place because I think it's really easy to look at other people and what they have and be like, oh my God, like, oh, you're so lucky, or I wish I had this, or whatever it is. And it's like, well, if someone else can if someone else has something, it's just proof that you can have it too, and it's available. And it's about like, let's get inspired by this person. Let's see what they've done. Let's see how they got there. You can really cut your timeline to get there so much quicker. And I really just will sum up this part of things, that because someone else has it, if anything, it's proof that it's available and it's open and you can have it too. It doesn't mean that because they have it, you can't, or if you have something you're taking away from someone else. I think oftentimes we limit ourselves from that place because we're in like this scarcity mindset of this is limited, and if we have it, then maybe someone else can't have it, or whatever it is. And abundance is open, it's free. Like we can all have it, we can all tap into it when we choose to and desire to as well.
I love that. You touch on so many good points. One thing in terms of like there's the duality, right? Like when you do the inner healing, like and you go through this journey and you experience changes, results, there's going to be duality of like the positive and negative. And it's almost like we kind of expect things to just be positive. And obviously, like we can, create a life that is mostly great, but there's going to be duality with like maybe there's going to be some people who throw hate at you. And I think that's, if you want something different, like you said, if you want to stand out, then it's almost like coming to acceptance with like, you are going to stand out and some people might not like it. You might be misunderstood, etc. And that's just like the price to pay, quote unquote. Even though for me, like I've had many moments of like feeling like super unfulfilled and just fitting in and playing small and just kind of like shutting up a bit more because I've had people sort of like tell me like you shouldn't say things like that or whatever. And I realized like I was so much more unhappy than when I was speaking out and then sometimes got a troll or a hater. And so for me, it was like it would be so much more painful to just like sit on my gifts and not speak up and not share my truth. Um, then, actually go all in and like show up authentically. And then, yes, sometimes somebody might not agree, but oftentimes I think our brains will make it worse than it actually is and also make it seem like we won't be able to handle it. Like you said, like, what if it does work out? And looking at like the opposite side of the coin. And also, I think it also can be really beneficial to even look at like worst case scenario, like what is the fear? What if it doesn't work out? Well, I still will be okay and I will figure it out because when you face that fear, then it's sort of like, oh, it's not like the when something is in the dark, like it's so much bigger, or like you see it like a shadow or whatever. And then you shine a light on something and you're like, oh, it was just a sock that I thought was a monster or whatever, right? So that's one piece. And then I love the piece that you talked about shifting from envy and jealousy to inspiration. Because, yeah, we've definitely been conditioned to believe that we live in a scarcity universe of like, there's not enough. We all have to hoard and fight each other for like the toilet paper and whatever. And that like, abundance is limited, but that we really don't live in a limited universe. We live in an abundant universe that has provided everything that we need. And I definitely had that as well at the beginning, where it was like my automatic thought would be like, that must be nice, kind of thing, like must be nice to be her. It's just like you have a perfect life. And then I realized like, I don't like this attitude and this feeling that I have towards people that have what I want. And it just puts me in this victim scarcity energy, which just attracts more of that. And that's where I started to be like, yeah, like you said, if somebody actually is experiencing something that you want, has something that you want, that's literally proof. Like you need to look for more of that proof. And then that also helps to instill that belief that it is possible because other people have it. Because if no one had the thing that you want, then it's like, it's going to be a lot harder to believe that it's possible for you, right? So I love the concept of surrounding yourself with people. And this is what I'm so like, I've been adamant about this ever since my spiritual entrepreneurship journey started, is about like surrounding myself with those types of people. And I know sometimes it can be hard because maybe we're physically not in a place where we do have like people around us that are like-minded or kind of like on the same trajectory. But the blessing is nowadays we have the internet. And so for me, like I have like masterminds and communities and podcasts. Like you can literally tune into YouTube videos. You can literally brainwash yourself all day long listening to these people who have what you want and who are living a life that you want in a good way when I talk about brainwash. Um, and so I really want to touch on the fact that there are spaces that exist for women that is not like, petty and jealousy. It's about like supporting each other. Like I'm cheering you on, you're cheering me on, like you're winning, Like we're all winning when we're winning. Like if someone's winning, that's a celebration and we're not going to like tear them down. It's actually like, yeah, it's a great sign that, things are working and you're doing things that are aligned for you. And I'm inspired by that as well, right?
100%. 100%. I'm so glad that you brought that up. I actually run a community based on that as well. And I'm part of so many groups as well nowadays. And it's so interesting because like you were probably in the same space, but I used to be in the place where it was like if someone had something, there was like competition, I guess I would say between women, and like if this person has something, um there's often like in society, I would say there's a lot of competition between women. And nowadays I'm in so many groups where everyone genuinely wants each other to win. And it's such a great feeling. And I think so many people aren't aware of that. And I'm like, we need to normalize this more. And I think when you get into a place in life where it's like it's the new, like for me, it's norm. Like I don't have people in my life who are pulling me down or who are in that space of competition. It's like, you can have it. I'm so happy for you that you have it, and I can have it, and you can be happy for me as well. Like, it doesn't take away from anything, like we said before. And I think there are so many spaces like that. And I think the virtual is such a blessing. Like, if you are in a place where physically you don't have environments like that, like you said, like podcasts, like there's social media who we're following as well. And also even Facebook groups. Like I've connected with so many like-minded people where literally connecting to groups that are like-minded things that I want to learn more about, or I connect to, or I vibe with. And I'm just like literally talking to people in there, connecting with people in there. And I've literally I've even met people in real life, like from those groups, which is so cool as well. Like when, like just from traveling around. So there's definitely spaces. And even if you are in a place where you're physically in a place and you don't have someone, like you don't have those people right now, I would say, like, I always encourage clients to get creative and think outside the box. And like, what are the things that you enjoy doing? Like, maybe go and do something outside of your comfort zone that you haven't done before. Maybe try a different hobby, try a different sports, do something. Because when you're connecting with, when you're doing something that you want more of, like, you're naturally going to attract those people into your life. So I think it is always available for us. And sometimes it's not always as easy if it's not like a surrounding where there's naturally people that are inclined to go to those places. But I think it's definitely always available to us if you believe that it's possible for you. So I would definitely say, like, if you are in that space where you're looking for that and you're craving more of that connection in person, then try new things that you haven't done before. Like, leave your comfort zone, do something different, and you might just find people that are in the same mind. And then it's always like it takes one person, and then there's always going to be connections that are building on from that place as well.
Yeah, that's definitely something I completely agree with as well. It's just like everything is there now. Like it exists and the thing around like the location, like yes, it's obviously optimal if we can have face to face, conversations and being in a proximity with people. But oftentimes it really starts with like the most accessible thing, like YouTube, podcasts, Facebook groups, etc. That's really been huge for me. And then, like conversations like this and just realizing that you're not alone, because oftentimes when you go through like a spiritual awakening or like going through this journey of like healing and inner work and personal development and spiritual awakening, like it can feel really lonely or like the people around you don't get it or like, am I going crazy? Or like, am I weird? Am I like whatever, the weirdo? And there's so many people going through similar things like this and who really love these types of conversations and going through these dark nights of the soul and spiritual awakenings and inner healing and all of that kind of thing. And it really helps to not feel alone, but then also continue on your journey because you feel supported in a community. And I think the number one thing is that. So, even if it's free, definitely making that a priority because the environment is so huge. I think it's like the number one factor. And this is something that I see all the time in terms of like health. When, for example, one person is trying to eat healthy, lose weight, whatever, and then they're just like, my family, my partner isn't on board. And then it's like they fall off the wagon all the time. And it's like that environment is so influential. And of course, we can't always control like where we're living or who we're surrounded by. Like every situation is different, but we definitely need to start looking at that. Like, who am I surrounded by? And starting to like audit, because that's something that oftentimes it is uncomfortable to like let go of relationships and things like that. And I'm not saying you need to like go on full blown, like leave people, but it's important to look at like, if the people around me can't support my vision or don't get it, then I need to find people who do and start to add more people in who will support me and, encourage me and allow myself to believe in that vision. So it's not an all or nothing conversation either, but I really think it does take like having an honest conversation and really looking at like who am I surrounding myself by, even if that's like what am I listening to inside my earphones, right?
I love that you mentioned that. And I really do believe that it's about added and not taken away. Meaning, it's like sometimes I'll have these conversations with people and they're like, but I can't disconnect from this person, or I can't do this, or I can't do that. Like, it's not about that. It's not about completely letting go of people or disconnecting people from your life or whatever it is. Like, that's a natural part of life as well. It's about like, let's add, like, you can always choose to add onto your life as well, which is through either connecting with people, whether it's in person, whether it's online, what you're consuming, what you're putting into your mind. Like, that is so, so powerful. Like, oftentimes I see so many people in their health and fitness space as well, and they're so focused on what they're putting into their body. And it's like, but what do you put into your mind is equally as important as well. And that is something we literally have a choice to do every day. And even if you're not, even if you're not listening to like consuming certain things, whatever it is, like you can still choose to wake up every day and to practice gratitude and to be grateful for what you have. You can still choose to do so many things, and it's really about what you focus on and where you put your mindset as well. And I think like going back to what we said before, it's so easy to focus on the negative and you're just going to naturally attract more of that. And like this is going to be a whole conversation in itself, but something that I will just say building on from that is I think so many people think that you only need to think positive thoughts or focus on the positive in order to get what you want. And I'm going to call absolute BS on that as well. It's not that you have to think positive to attract what you want, but focusing on focusing on the negative is going to attract more of that. But that doesn't mean you only have to think positive thoughts to get what you want, because we are human and it is more than needed to feel all the range of emotions that are coming up, which I know is another whole conversation in itself. But yeah, who we surround ourselves with is like a massive, massive thing. And I think we always have the power to choose that, whether it's if we're not physically with people, what we're consuming, the rooms that we're putting ourselves into, the virtual groups that we're in, like these sort of things are really, really powerful and important as well.
Yeah, I love what you said about like adding in. That's sort of like the concept of like eating healthy too. Like crowd out your plate with like really healthy stuff so that you don't feel the need to have the Twizzlers, whatever it is. And so I think that's also something when it comes to like going through this journey. I don't think anyone who can even resonate with any of the conversation we're having, or has gone through like a spiritual awakening, inner healing journey, hasn't at least experienced some sort of like losing people or outgrowing certain people, and not in like I'm better way, but just like we're just not aligned anymore. Like I have different interests and I just there's just not that resonance anymore. And that's definitely happened for me where there's a natural outgrowing of certain environments. And I think it's a lot easier if you do you do focus on adding new
Yeah,
connections into your space when that does happen versus like, oh, now I have no one here. And that's not going to happen. Like, you're not going to lose everyone on this journey. I just want to like make that clear. But it will likely happen that some people won't get it. Maybe they won't come along on this journey with you. Maybe there'll be certain boundaries. And so when you do add in, it's a lot easier to go through that when you're like, well, I still have people around me who support me, etc. Right.
100%.
And I love that you talked about the manifestation thing because I want to touch on that. And this is something that at the beginning of my journey, I definitely was like, I think we all fall into this trap around like, and I mean, the intention is good, but it's not really the whole conversation around like, think positive and you'll attract your dream life. I think a lot of that sort of came from The Secret, and it wasn't fully explained. And so it really comes down to because I know for me, there are certain areas of my life that I've had more inner blocks and resistance to versus others. Like for example, there's certain areas that I've been able to like manifest super easily, like around travel, manifesting apartments, homes, when other people were like, aren't you stressed out about like not having a home next month? And I was like, no, like I know something's gonna come through. And every time it was like, found it, even if it was like 2 weeks before. And I swear I've never been stressed about it. It's always been like, it will come through. And I think it's just like there's obviously lots of nuances around this, but for me, it's like I generally believe that it's going to work out. So like I don't need to repeat affirmations every minute like the house is coming through, the house is coming through because I'm freaking out internally. And so what I found is like oftentimes, for example, with money, which has been more of I've been having to do more of the workaround because of limiting beliefs and stuff passed down from family, but also society and everything. If a lot of time it's like, how do you really feel about that thing and what do you truly believe? Because oftentimes it can feel like bullshit when you sort of repeat affirmations of like, I am a millionaire or whatever. And you're just like, it's bullshit. Your mind is like, oh. So oft I think there's a nuanced conversations where like affirmations have a time and a place, but it's going to take repetition. I think there's many different tools like affirmations can serve us, etc. But it can get really frustrating when you're like repeating affirmations all the time and you're like, why is my life not changing? And that's where I think like the deeper work needs to happen around like what you actually feel safe with, like the nervous system and subconscious rewiring, like you can change your beliefs. But I really think it's important, like you said, to note that negative thoughts won't mean that like you're not going to manifest anything, right? Like you can have negative feelings and negative thoughts, but that doesn't mean like, oh, I'm never going to manifest anything because I need to be positive all the time, right?
100%. Like, I think the biggest way I would kind of invite you to look at it is asking yourself honestly, like the version of you who has everything that she desires and she's manifested that thing, would she never think of like a negative thought? Of course not. Like you're human. So I think when you look at it that way, it's like, well, if she can think a negative thought and have the things that I want, then why can I not think a negative thought as well? And I think it really does go back to what you said before, like even when you were looking for the apartments, like you had that inner belief and that trust that it's going to happen. And it's not about just sitting there and like, I'm just going to sit and hope it's going to fall into my lap. But like when you have that belief and you take action at the same time, that's when things really start to shift as well. And with the affirmations, I think it's a powerful tool, but it has to be believable. Like you can't say things that are completely unbelievable. Like a little bridge belief that I think is often helpful is like if you're working towards something, you're in the process of working towards something. It's like you can say, I'm in the process of believing that, or I'm working towards X, Y, Z, or I'm learning to get better at this, or I'm learning to become. But like to literally say things that you don't believe, like that's just going to make you so much more frustrated and it's not going to work and it's just a waste of time. So it's powerful, but I would definitely say like ask yourself what the next step is. Like if it's too big of a gap between where you are right now and where you want to get to, you're going to get there, but take one step at a time and build it as you're going along as well.
It's really about the empowerment piece. And I think like the awareness, right? Like, even if you do notice, I have so many negative thoughts about my body or about money or my career or whatever, then let's start to look at that because when we start to bring the awareness, I think number one is awareness, right? Because otherwise, if we don't even know what we're thinking about on a regular basis, like for me, I wasn't even aware that I was like super envious of these people who had what I want, but I was negatively thinking about them. And then when I had that awareness, I was like, oh, I can't unsee that anymore. Every time I see that girl, I'm going to be like, no, we're not thinking that anymore, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I think something that I recently have been like loving to do as well is, like we said, just going back to before, like surrounding yourself with people who like have those things as well. I actually like to question people who like kind of have already worked towards the things that I want. I'm like, how are you thinking about it? From a genuine place of curiosity. And I've come to like some great conclusions around that, like whether it's around career, relationship, business, like I'm literally just connecting with people and genuinely asking them, like, how are you thinking about those things? Because I know that if I want different things and they already have those things, like I'm going to have to start thinking differently about it. So it's just really interesting to get curious and like, what is that person thinking about it? And sometimes it's mind blowing and they're sharing stuff. It's like, oh my God, like no wonder I don't have that thing, or I'm still like where I'm still here and like they've already worked towards those things. They're literally thinking differently in order to get to a different place. And yeah, just building on from what you said before as well around like the manifestation, and sometimes like we already have those things and like this is what we can manifest. I think it's important to recognize as humans that you can already be in a place right now where your life is great and you have everything you want. And together with that, naturally, as you grow, your potential is going to grow as well, meaning that you are going to want to manifest more things and to call in more things. And it doesn't mean that your life has to be crap or not great in order to have more things. Like you can have a great life already now. You can be happy and content with where you are right now, and you can still want to go after more things, building on from that because your potential is naturally expanding as you are growing as well. So I think there's nothing wrong with that. And I think sometimes it is just important to recognize that, because sometimes we do stop ourselves and hold ourselves back because it's like, well, life is already great. And life can already be great and you can still want more. And there's nothing wrong with that as well.
So I love that you bring that up too, because oftentimes I think we don't really talk about that. Like usually manifestation, it's like my life, I've gone into like a rock bottom in my life. So then I start learning about manifesting. And then it's sort of like we stop talking about it, or we start really focusing on it, or we don't talk about it as much when it's like this person's a millionaire and they have like the love of their life and this family and big house. And it's just like we don't really talk about what happens beyond the dream life, but it always is evolving and changing. And it's not like, okay, it stops there, right?
Yeah, 100%. And also, the only other thing I would say, just building on from that, I think it's also just important to recognize that it's not even just about the external things. I think for a long time I was in the place of like, when you have the next accomplishment and when you have the next thing, then you're going to be happy. And it's so backwards. Like, I'm in a place right now, one of the biggest things I work on with clients is like, if your life is not feeling just as good inside as it looks on the outside, then what is all the outside things like worth? Like, you can be that millionaire and have the business and have the relationship and all the things and be deeply unfulfilled and happy and not happy inside. So instead of focusing on like the actual things, focus on the person that you're actually becoming and how it's you want to feel. And I think that is like such a big important thing that is often really overlooked by society. It's like, just go on to the next thing and get the next thing and then you're going to be happy. And it's like, no, like, be happy first and then have the things and actually enjoy the things that you have, you know?
Yeah, 100%. And that's where it comes to like, can you practice happiness now? Like for me, big values are like freedom. Like that's one of my top values. So like, how can I feel free right now? Like even if it's like riding my bicycle to anywhere I want, like that's a sense of freedom for me versus like, I don't know, traveling first class. Like that could also be freedom, but like, how do I practice that now? Because oftentimes we are not actually going to feel safe feeling that happy and free unless we practice it because it's going to be like this dangling carrot that's on this pedestal. So I really love that you bring that up too because it's almost like that's also a hack a hack to manifestation around like feel the feeling now and then it's almost like yeah, duh, that was going to happen because I already felt it, I already saw it, I already like lived it. Um, and it really does come down to that because I think we're going to waste a lot of time if we're just chasing this thing that we think is going to make us happy. And then we get there and we're like, I'm so burnt out. This is actually not what I wanted. I actually was chasing a feeling, and we can absolutely access that feeling now in the smallest ways. And I think that's a really important, if not the most important practice for sure.
100%.
Is there anything you wanted to leave us with? Any last thoughts before we wrap up today?
Wow. No, I think there's always more to go into, but I think that is it for now. I do have something for your listeners though, if
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. So I actually created like I help the black sheep essentially to have the courage to live a life without regrets. And I do have a free guide for you listeners. The Black Sheep's Guide to saying yes to your life. And it's really kind of building up for the conversation we have right now. So I'll share the link with you and you can drop it as well.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. And let us know where we can find you, where you're active, if we want to learn more about you and, follow you and all the things, work with you.
Yeah, I think Instagram's the best place to find me. You can come follow me there and see what's going on. Dalia Kemble is just my name. Again, I can send you the link and then you can just, I guess, put it in the show notes.
Yeah, for sure. I will put all the links in the show notes on YouTube and podcast so you guys can check her out. Thank you so much for the conversation today, Dalia. I had so much fun and I think our listeners are going to love this.